Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me and listening to my podcast. This is the beginning not only of my podcast, but a beginning of a new life. I'm 50. So where to now? Is 50 the ideal age to have your life all figured out? Should I be successful in my career and my business right now with a loving family? Is that all there is at 50? You should be accomplished. And if you're not, have you failed? Have I failed? Because now I'm a divorcee as well, and not just 50, but divorcee and a single woman. Wow, that's a lot to grasp, right? Well, it's my reality. So who dictates that at a certain age, you have to be at a certain place in your life? Is that all there is to life, or is there more? Are we just expected to be at a place in our lives at a certain age and just be content with that, with the mediocrity that's it to life? Or is there more? Do I stop living because sometimes I feel stuck, or I'm in limbo, or because I'm afraid, or I feel I failed? Who have I failed? Where have I failed? Is it my career? Because I've shifted and moved from different jobs in my life and different career paths because I wasn't happy where I was. Starting out as an accountant and then going to sales where I love meeting people and talking to people and helping people. And then became a stay-at-home mom, but I was helping my husband then with the business that we had. What about my health? I was a marathon runner. I ran, got up at 3 a.m. to go running with a group that ran locally. I trained for a few marathons. I've ran New York and Chicago and numerous Disney marathons, full marathons. I've done halves, I've done 10Ks, 5Ks. Those were just normal stuff for me because every week I would run, from 20 to 25 miles a week or more when we're training for the long runs. Even tried out for a triathlon. This is not to say I'm so great, but I've done all of that. And so I've tried stuff, I've done stuff in my life. So have I failed because I got a divorce? Did I fail my relationship because I'm not happily married and with my kids? Have I failed my kids or failed myself? Well, it's a loaded question, right? I'm not sure where you all are in your lives right now, in your relationship or your career. I just want you to know that life happens and it's okay. It's okay to shift your paradigm. It's okay to go through challenges in your life and fail as long as you pick yourself up and start over. As long as you know where you need to go and follow through. And it's okay to fail and start over. Even if you fail 100 times, 1,000,000 times. As long as you get up, you have a chance to start all over. Wherever you are, even with a different career paths. So I question myself at times. I have my own self-doubts, But there is more to live for. It's not over because you're 50 or 40 or whatever age you are. Even if you're starting out. My past experiences got me to where I am today. It's now up to me to continue to live. Whether I want to be reliving my past, because there were good times as well, and not so great times, but that's part of life. We have ups and downs. But do I want to relive my past and feel bad about where I'm at because financially I'm not where I am, where I used to be? Or do I stay stuck in self-doubt? Or listen to my inner voice. What's your inner voice telling you? My truth, my passion, my inner voice it's my truth, my passion, my desire, my goals and my dreams and my aspirations. Where are you with your goals and dreams and aspirations? Do you have them? Did you put them aside because you have other responsibilities? I've been through that, and there are times I'm still going through that. I'm at a pivotal point in my life now to say, you know what? I've lived half a century. It's time to, look myself in the mirror and see myself for who I really am. I need to pull myself together and dust myself off when I fell off the wagon, so to speak. Because we will fail. It's just, part of life. No one is coming to my rescue. So I have to pick myself up, just like you. If you're somewhere right now, don't wait for something to happen for you or for someone to come along and lend a helping hand. No one is coming to help you. You've got to help yourself. And I tell myself, no one's going to lift me up and tell me everything is going to be okay. When I went through the divorce, I shut myself out from my friends and families, took a year off to myself just to reflect and really just to transition and feel what I had to feel, go through the emotions. Because you have to do that as humans. We all have, but we can't be stuck. We can't stay stuck in that emotion. Feel it, accept it, and try to move on as quickly as you can. Otherwise, you get stuck, and then what happens? You lose your time. You lose all the ability to continue. But you can't do that because if you have people in your lives, they depend on you. They need you. If you have kids, even more so. I have 2 kids of my own, and because of that, there are times I don't feel like getting up out of bed. I feel sad. I feel depressed. I can't stay stuck. But I took time off for myself. And some people see that as being lazy or being selfish and not going right into working and getting a job. I needed time to breathe and to check in with myself. It's okay. Give yourself permission to check in because we all need that time. Now I'm at the place where, I've used that time. It's going on to 4 years since my divorce. And in those 4 years, I took a year off, but the last 3 years, I've been busy starting my own business with a catering business, and busy getting back into real estate, and worked, all hours of the day and night to make it happen. Because being a single parent and a single woman, it's tough out there. But it's tough for anybody when you're on your own and you don't have the income you're used to. When you have to go out there and make ends meet. Because I know there's a lot of you out there that's doing that, have been doing that all your life. And I, applaud you. I've done that before I got married. But then I had to kind of revert back to my old self. But now I have 2 kids to take care of. Guess what? I have to double down and work even harder and, challenge myself to go the extra mile. I've worked 14 hours doing my catering business and it flopped. Did I feel upset? Of course I was upset. Was I upset with myself? Not so much. Was I upset with the circumstances? More so, yes. Could I have done something differently? Maybe. But at that point in time, I just realized, I put in all the effort. I jumped in 200%, put in my time and the effort and the money. When I realized that, it's not cost effective. I'm losing money. I need to save what little money I had left for my divorce and apply that elsewhere, like paying my expenses, my bills and what have you. So I took a reality check and said, sometimes you have to know when to quit. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or how people perceive you. They're not in your shoes. They don't know what you're going through. And that's to you as well out there. I used to worry so much about what people thought of me, to the point where it just stressed me out so much that I was so cautious. I didn't want to be seen here or there, or if I didn't have my makeup on or my hair done right or dressed a certain way. But it got to me to the point I go, you know what? After the divorce, I checked in with myself and said, it's okay, be myself. It's okay if I don't go out and hang out with people. I need time to reflect. I need time for me to heal and to grow and be true to myself. So where am I going with all of this? Simply saying, don't let age define you. Don't let your circumstances define you. Wherever you are in life right now, that's where you're supposed to be. If it's bad or good, that is the perfect place for you right now. If it's not going great, it's a learning lesson for you to get up and move forward to something better. If you're in a great place, good for you. I'm happy for you. But don't stay complacent. Don't stay there thinking everything is going to be okay all the time. Because guess what? Life happens. It's never going to be 100% fine all day, every day for the rest of your life. Be prepared for it. Be prepared for the winter days. That time's going to come. It's a cycle. Life is a cycle. You go up, and what goes up must come down, right? It's a law of gravity. So here I am to say, I'm 50, and then I've never been happier, in my life to decide to do this. And yes, I made sacrifices. Yes, I'm sure I've, hurt people along the way without meaning to, but because things happen, I hurt people along the way. And like I said, it wasn't intentional. But now I get to look myself in the mirror and really see me for who I am. I'm not helpless. Sure, I felt that, more times than not all through my life. More so when I felt like I failed my marriage, my children, my family, my parents, even myself at times. I'm not weak. Yes, I felt like a lost soul and wanted to give up many times, mostly with failed relationships. I used to blame myself, then blame the others, then came back and blamed myself because I didn't feel I was good enough, even though sometimes it was someone else's fault. But I was going through a vicious cycle of trying to figure out what was the true underlying issue. When I finally faced my own truths, deep down there were lots of reasons why things didn't work out. Of course, there were plenty of contributing factors. There are always more than two sides to the stories. They say there are two sides. I say there's three. There's the other person's side, my outer side, the obvious reasons that was easy to point out because of the common responses people say. We had a miscommunication. It was work-related, business-related issues, whether there were lawsuits and yada, yada, yada. The stress was induced from these issues, outside environment, medical reasons. Like my case, I was going through premenopause when I was going through my divorce. Had no idea I was going through menopause. And the hormonal changes, it was a emotional roller coaster, really. I was a train wreck because I didn't even know why I felt what I felt, why I snapped at my husband then. And then there were days I was super happy. If I went and worked out, I was on top of the world. I felt like I could do anything, conquer anything. And there were days that when I didn't. If he asked me a question about dishes, I snapped at him. And there were times I'm thinking, why did I say that? Why was I being so rude or so mean to my husband then? It wasn't because I hated him or anything. I snapped because my hormones were out of whack at that time. I was going through a menopause and didn't know it. But that's not, some people may say that it's an excuse. That's okay. They weren't in my shoes. I didn't even know I was going through that because the doctor that we paid, who was supposedly a concierge doctor that we pay an arm and a leg for, and she didn't even know. If a doctor that is a medical doctor and trained to notice these symptoms didn't even know when I was going to see her for blood work, blood counts, like every 2 weeks, and getting vitamin shots and so on and so forth, paying her an arm and a leg, and she didn't even know. How the heck was I supposed to know? Again, I'm not pointing fingers to say it was her fault that it caused our marriage. No, there were other factors. So like I said, the hormone stuff, the menopause. And then, I was in my early 40s when I was going through some changes. And my ex is, 7 or 8 years older than myself. So he was going through some stuff with work, and it was, he had his own work-related stuff that he was going through, and I was going through some personal stuff, my hormones. And then we looked at ourselves and thinking, it said maybe, it didn't work because of, because we're two different people, because of our cultural upbringing. He was raised, with a different childhood experience than I was. I had a very traumatic childhood experience coming from a war-torn country and seeing what I've seen, what I've witnessed, going, escaping our country and seeing people being shot and being killed and staying in a refugee camp. I'll go into details with that later. All that stuff, had affected the way I thought, the way I saw things. And then with my father being super strict and being brought up in an Asian family, I never felt I was good enough with my parents, especially my father. That had a lot to do with our relationship, with all the relationships I had in my past, and with my ex-husband. When he spoke with me, I always felt that he was putting me down. He wasn't. I knew better because I knew he wanted to build me up. But he always went back to how my father used to talk to me. My dad was a wonderful dad, but at the same time, he was a very hard father figure, a very tough man to please. We never could please him, anybody in the family. We never could do enough to please him. He was never happy with what we did. There were times that he praised us, like me graduating college. That was a huge, compliment that he was happy. He praised me and told people he was proud of me that I had a college degree and so on and so forth. But more times than not, he was always unhappy with the children. There were 9 of us. There are 9 of us. And he didn't seem to be pleased with anybody with how we chose to live our lives or the career paths we took, or he just never thought we were good enough in his eyes. So having that feeling of never being good enough as a daughter, it came through to my feelings as a sister. Sometimes I feel like I'm not always there for my siblings. I try to be, even when I was married, try to have family gatherings. There are times I feel like I neglect my siblings, but I had a family to raise just like they did. But that was just my guilty conscience, right? Because of my upbringing, I didn't know any better. I had this constant guilty conscience. Even as an aunt, I tried to help out a niece when she was younger that needed a place to stay. And when I couldn't keep her because of the circumstances, I felt guilty that I couldn't help raise my niece at that time. I did for 6-7 months, but it didn't plan out like I wanted to for her to be with me until she graduated from high school. That's another story. And even as a girlfriend, and then a fiance and a wife, sometimes I felt like I wasn't doing all that I can to be the best girlfriend or the best fiance or a wife. And then sometimes as a mom, I doubt myself, like, am I being a good enough mom? Am I feeding my kids healthy enough food? Am I spending enough quality times with them? Am I asking the right questions about them? Am I being too much of a helicopter mom or a tiger mom, pushing them too hard? Being raised as an Asian, there are strict protocols and guidelines to live by. So I had that to balance with being raised an American, as an American citizen. I came here when I was 8, and I see things in both ways. My strict upbringing being Asian and very reserved and conservative and strict. I have that conflicting side, and then being a little more liberal, being brought up in the American culture, going off to college when I was 19, and seeing life outside of living with my parents, and then seeing that there's opportunities out there that I never knew existed, that there was another world, another life outside of living in a farm with my parents in Florida. So I saw so many eye-opening opportunities, and that helped me change the way I look at life. But it was conflicting because when I came back after I graduated, I had to kind of go back in time and become this very obedient daughter again, trying to please my parents, to the point where I agreed to be engaged to someone that I supposedly dated for 8 years, which we didn't really, technically yes, but realistically, we really didn't have that much time together because I went off to college for 3.5 years, and it was long distance. I went off to college in Pennsylvania. We never really saw each other except on breaks from school, whether it's spring break or Christmas break or Thanksgiving break, when I got to see him for a few days before I went home. And that was the extent of our relationship. He was a good person, but I had to be engaged to him in order for me to move out on my own, because I knew he was going to come by to see me, and to be the proper child, the proper daughter, and not to shame my family, especially my parents. I had to be engaged to this person who is a wonderful person. We're still friends now. But at that time, I was 23 when I graduated, and I wanted to start my life and start living, and I didn't want to continue the relationship, but I had to be engaged. So I went against my own free will. In my head, I knew that there was more to life, but I was obligated to do what my parents expected. But at the end, luckily, I was strong enough to truly dig deep and say, I can't do this. It's not fair to him or myself to live a lie to say I want to be married to this person when I wasn't ready to be married at that time. So long story short, I stepped up my game and told my parents I couldn't continue with the marriage. So long story short, that was my first big step into knowing my true self, being able to stand up for myself and believing in myself that there's more to life than always obeying somebody and trying to live to someone else's expectation of who you should be. But then I got married. After a few failed relationships, I finally got married, and I was living the life, had a wonderful life, travel around the world, have two beautiful kids, and lots of wonderful friends, and I had a wonderful life, had no complaints, but something deep down inside me realized that I was being complacent. I felt like there had to be more to life. I wanted to pursue other things in life, not just to be a mom or stay-at-home mom and just doing the day-to-day chores or errands. And I went to the gym. My life was at the gym. I was there for 3-4 hours a day, and that was my second home. I loved it. And I had hobbies, which was my running, my marathon training, even got into bodybuilding competitions, training for a competition. Never got to it because of the divorce. But my point was, I had a lavish lifestyle. My ex-husband told me I could go shopping anytime, whatever I wanted. He was there to support me. He said, whatever you want to do, you want to write your book, write it. But somehow or another, even though he gave me all those support and the financial backing, I didn't have to worry about expenses or anything because he took care of me, took care of our family. And I had it made, and my family sometimes, I'm sure they wonder why I got out of the marriage. Even our friends, they never knew anything was wrong because every time they saw us, we were, pretty much content and happy with each other. We have our moments where we bicker because, we're human, but at the same time, it was a shock when we said, we're calling it quits. There were other factors that, came into being, but it's, that's another story. There's always going to be some factors that are involved, but I don't want to go into those details. At the end of the day, I just realized that I wanted more out of life, and being stuck in the marriage, I don't want to say stuck, being in a marriage that we both felt unhappy in. He had his own stuff that he was working through, and so was I. We went through counseling, couples counseling, a handful of times, and it didn't work for me. And who knows, if you're going through counseling, it may work for you, but for me, I just realized that it never worked out. I was just repeating my stories and getting upset, and I never got anywhere. Went to through a few counselors, we both did, but it didn't, like I said, it didn't help me. And he thought that I didn't give it enough time, that I, wasn't as committed. But that's okay. And I'm not, here to blame him or anything else. I just knew deep inside that there were things that we can't change. I can't change who I am. I can change to be better, to better myself, but I can't change how I think about certain things. Because, we're all cut from a different cloth. Our upbringing and everything does shape how we think about stuff. Yes, we can shift our mindset and do better. But all in all, we have to be honest and truthful to ourselves and look deep inside and realize that, do you want to stay in a relationship when you're not totally happy? Yes, in every relationship, with anything in life, if you want to make it work, you can, make it work. You work harder at it. You do whatever it takes to make it work. But at the end of the day, even if you went through hoops and jumped through hoops and did all that and still not happy, and then you're still doubting yourself, and why put yourself through that if you know at the end of the day you're not going to be happy? Why waste your time or someone else's time when they can be with someone else that can make them happy, or they'll be happier with someone else? So I took that decision, and after talking to each other, we realized it was best to part ways. The only people that are hurt the most are the kids. And I could have stayed in the marriage for the kids' sake, but there are people out there that stay for the kids' sake. What about you? You got to look at yourself. If you and your husband or you and your spouse are not getting along for whatever reason, and you end up creating a very toxic relationship or environment for your kids, isn't it better to let the kids be in a calm place, a happy home, when both parents can have their own place and the kids can be happy at two different homes, than being afraid to be themselves in a home where there's tension? So I made that decision. We both made that decision that it was best to just part ways. So that's where I'm at with this. Everybody's circumstances are different. I'm not saying I made the best choice, but it was the best choice for me at the time. Once I got out of the marriage, even before we signed the paperwork, the divorce agreement, I was already doubting and regretting. I even, pleaded with my ex, you know what, let's not go through with this. I had cold feet trying to get a divorce. And I did. I was doubting myself, thinking maybe we shouldn't do this, But he said, no, once we decided to do it, we've already got the paperwork drawn, we're going through with it. And, maybe that's because he's a man and he has to stick to his word. So whatever the case was, we both decided to move on. But a part of me was feeling terrible. I was doubting, what am I going to do now? Where am I going to go? When I moved out, I had this sunken feeling, my stomach was knotted. I was not happy. I was unhappy for a year when we got a divorce. I was so depressed, and it was horrible. Like, I kept reaching out to my ex-husband, let's get back, because I didn't want to live without seeing my kids every day. It was the most horrific time. So if you're going through a divorce or going through a separation, do it when you're truly sure that you can handle the consequences. Nobody knew. I didn't know what it would be like. Nobody knows what you're going to go through until you actually go through it. So I'm getting a little emotional right now because it was tough to see my kids go through it. And I was feeling it because I still care for my ex. I still loved him and respected him and loved him. But I just knew it was better if we went our separate ways. But then I doubted myself. So long story short, it's never an easy answer. You're always going to have doubts, but you never know where that next step is going to take you. You just have to make a decision to stay or to move on. If you stay, you know what you've got. And some people are okay with that, and they, stay in a relationship until the kids are grown. So they made a sacrifice of losing 10, 15 years of their lives or 18 years of their lives and then start again. Or if you know ahead of time, go, you know what? Let's spare the loss of those time and make the sacrifice and do it. Really, if you're truly happy with yourself, the kids will appreciate you for it. And they will be happy at the end. In the beginning, it's going to be tough for everybody. Maybe more so for them because they're young and they don't understand. But make the right decision for you ultimately, because you can't do it just for the kids if it's eating you inside. So that's all I have to say. It was a very, very hard decision. But, I've gone through a few relationships in my life. Didn't date a lot, but whoever I did date, it was always long term because I always wanted to make sure whoever I'm with, I didn't want to waste time dating just for the sake of dating. I want to make sure the person I'm dating is a person I'm going to end up with, be married to, because I didn't want to waste my time just dating around. So everybody that I've dated was always long term until things didn't work out. Everybody has their preference, their way of doing things. I'm just simply saying that's how I have gone through my life. And now at 50, I'm just at a point where, I was in a relationship for a few years, and we're at a point right now, just we're still talking, we're still in touch, but we're just taking a little break to give ourselves a breathing room, because we have to be a bit realistic where we are in our own lives and where we need to be. And if it doesn't coincide, we don't want to waste each other's time. But at the same time, we truly love and care for each other. So we're still here for each other. It's just, it's a complicated relationship. And I'm sharing that because that's life, right? Life is tough, but we just have to be tougher to endure the challenges that we are going through. And just realize that, guess what? We are here right now because of everything we've gone through. And if we made it through all those years and still be standing on our own 2 feet right now, we've come a long way. We've come a long way. You've come a long way. And just keep pushing forward. So this is just, a beginning of my podcast right now. This is my first episode. I'll be sharing more of my stories as I go along, but I also have tons of people I've been working with their stories. I want to share their stories of how they got to where they are right now, what they've done to get where they are, what sacrifices, if any, they went through to get to where they are, whether they're successful in their career or in their marriage. I'm going to share real life stories of people that I know personally, and also people that, I've met that I feel is an inspirational figure. Some of them one is, a boxer, an Asian boxer, and I'm going to try to interview her later. And then there's an author and a speaker that will be on TED Talk. I will be sharing her story as well. And, businesswomen here locally that are successful. Just tons of people. Some people that I didn't even know that had stories to be told. We all have stories to be told. We've all had lessons that we've learned along the way. And I think if we all can share our stories, somehow or another, one of our stories will help somebody else that's going through that same situation in their lives right now. And I'm here to promote a learning that will help encourage and motivate and inspire others, whether you're a woman or a man, young or old, wherever you are, whatever stages you are in life. If you're listening to this, I hope that you can take something away from this, or if you know of someone that can use this podcast to help push them along, or just to listen, because guess what? We all have stories to tell. We all need to get it off our chest, and we all need to do something about our lives. If you're totally happy where you are, like I said, good for you. But be prepared when things don't go well. And things will not be 100% all the time. You can't be happy all the time. And it's okay. We just pick ourselves back up. So thank you so much for your time in listening to this first podcast. I hope you'll come back and listen to some more. This is a heartfelt conversation. Eventually, I will have not just a story, hopefully an interview, and you'll hear the other person talking as well as I record the podcast to share their stories. And hopefully you guys can reach out to me and share your story. And I'm excited for this year. Happy 2022. And amidst all of these pandemic with the Omicron and the coronavirus, we can't stop living because of what's going on in life. We have to continue living. We got to continue moving forward. So I'm here on the sideline cheering you on in your own journey in life. And just keep going. Keep pushing forward. Whatever you're doing, you're going to succeed if you keep working at it. Even if it takes time, baby steps. Baby steps, little steps build up to bigger steps. And eventually, you'll climb to the top of Mount Everest, if that is your goal. I'll share more about that with my trip to Machu Picchu a couple of times a few years ago. And training for my marathons, what it took to get to where I wanted to be. Not to tell everybody how great I was, but it was a personal journey to just be able to meet challenges that I didn't think I could overcome. So that's where I am, living my life fully and every day, doing the best that I can and giving it all that I have. So I hope you guys continue doing that. Design a life for yourself. Be happy. Be honest with yourself and live fully. I hope you come back. This is Living Life by Design with Chai. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.